Since its launch in 2005, Broad Street Review has sought to promote the exchange of viewpoints rather than any particular point of view. To that end, we welcome commentary from professionals and amateurs alike about the performing and visual arts, as well as any other field of interest to our eclectic group of contributors. The following interview was submitted to Broad Street Review, powered by Rep Radio.
I'll start with my backstory. I grew up in New Jersey, so coming to Philly kind of feels like coming home. Central Jersey, which I've learned anything
it's not really New Jersey.
It's not really New Jersey. Yes, apparently it's North Jersey. Like there's North and South, and that's it. I come from where it's ice. Italian ice is not water ice. Mm-hmm. So, and I am Italian, in fact.
And here it's water ice.
Water ice, yes. So, but I grew up in New Jersey, and I was in the arts from an early age as a dancer, and was actually a performer for decades. I did all the things as an actor, and my last 15 years were spent on Broadway, which was amazing. But then I moved into the other side of producing and doing events, and then I ended up in Aspen, Colorado, acting in a musical. And they were looking for a new artistic director, and the short story is I ended up being that artistic director, which is not a job I ever envisioned. Mm-hmm. So after 10 years in Aspen, I was kind of looking for a place that was not, Aspen is extraordinary, but it's a bubble. Mm-hmm. It's this beautiful, beautiful bubble with extraordinary people and a majestic mountain
Actually, it
playground.
Just got a job lead about Aspen Theater.
Oh, I can tell you about it. It was an extraordinary 10 years, and I was so grateful because I really loved that job. I had no idea it would be something I would do and be good at. And but after 10 years, I kind of wanted another challenge, and that theater was in deep distress when I got there, and we got it healthy and built a new venue and. Got it to a really great place, and so I thought, where else can I go and do something good for the world? And PTC was in a similar situation where it was in need of a little attention, and so I walked into a situation where, I like to compare it to midlife, when you just need to, just take a look and revise your dreams and things that you maybe let slide for a little while need attention, and the company, of course, was going through financial difficulties, like pretty much every arts organization in the country, but especially those that built structures before the financial crisis. Mm-hmm. So I was excited to come. So I was excited to come to a city that was diverse and that had an artist community, because in Aspen we literally had to import everything that we needed. It was not a place that had actors, and there were some there, but they
the infrastructure to support.
So anyway, got here and found that indeed I had my work cut out for me. There was a lot that needed attention, but the potential was enormous, and the reputation was fantastic for what the company had accomplished in its 43 years. So, how's that for backstory?
That's good. That's great. I was going to ask when you said needed a little attention. What do you attribute to that? But you did kind of talk about it, because we know in this community. I've been here for 18 years, I think, active in the community, 12 or 13 years, and so I remember the origins of Plays and Players. Actually, one of my first jobs in Philadelphia was a partnership with PTC and Philadelphia Young Playwrights.
Oh, right.
And so that was back at Plays and Players, and some of the people that were involved in that I'm still very much connected to via social media and so on. So, PTC holds a special place for me, but at the same time, I had a distant relationship with PTC, and I feel like maybe other members of the community could relate to that too. But this gem of a space, is here, and there's so much potential and so much excitement. So to be here in the space for opening night, to see it just alive with all these smiles and energy and that dynamic cast on stage for Sweat was just wonderful, and these are just signs of great things to come.
Good. Well, I share your optimism. It was a long 18 months, and it was really hard not to produce last season. But it did give us time to plan a season that I hoped would be received well, that was a season that we could afford, and that I hoped would represent not only honoring shows that PTC would do, because I think Sweat is a real quote-unquote PTC show. Lynn Nottage is someone we've produced here before. It's a contemporary American play that deals with real issues. So I think it's a PTC play, even if I wasn't here. But then I thought the musical that we're doing in the winter would bring in perhaps new audiences. And then the third play is sort of another way we want to go, and that is new plays and maybe voices that are new to the industry, but definitely new to Philadelphia, and stories that aren't often told. The focus of that story is How to Catch Creation, which we just had casting sessions for this week. Nice. Tells a really, really beautiful story about 6 people who are kind of interesting, and they happen to be African American, but the story is not about being African American. It's about being people, and I think that's also an important story to tell. And I just want to tell stories.
Yeah. Well, we'll get more into those. But so even though your first season here was not a traditional theater season, there was still life coming out of PTC. And can you talk a little bit about how you brought these unique sort of, not one-offs, but these sort of smaller bits and pieces here? And what was the thought process behind it?
The thought process behind that was variety. It was experimental to see what would draw people. And so there was some method to the madness, but it was also topical. I wanted to see, Small Mouth Sounds, for instance, was a play that we booked in that was a tour that I saw Off-Broadway, which I loved, which I also think is something that we would produce. So I thought that was more traditional. And it was a new American writer that I love. But the other pieces that were smaller and shorter, one was, this crazy musical parody of the musical of the Game of Thrones. I have, full disclosure, I have never seen the Game of Thrones, so there's that. But matter of fact, I don't even think
so many of our listeners.
I know. I don't even think you call it the Game of Thrones. Let's just spoil. Yeah, but it was really popular, and it brought all of these people to the building that never were here before. Similarly, we did a day of princesses here, and it was hugely popular, and we had, a mosh pit of toddlers sidling up to the stage, singing with Ariel. How cool is that? So it was really fun to have new audiences, and I remember the first show I ever went to with my family, and I think that getting that memory, that first theater memory, sort of locks in your future audience. And so I think that day we created some new audience members, I hope. Yeah. So it was about variety and about seeing who else would come to the building.
So if you've been listening for the last 9 minutes, welcome to Rep Radio. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and we're in the lobby at Philadelphia Theater Company. We're at the Suzanne Roberts Theater, and I'm here with producing artistic director Paige Price. So welcome to Rep Radio officially. Woo! After we've got your backstory and we've gotten into the weeds a little bit. So tell me what a day in your life looks like here. What time does it start, and what do you do?
It starts with a 6, so I'm usually up pretty early. I'm a newsaholic, so I sort of...
That's my first hour of the day.
Yep, news and coffee, and then email at the same time. And then I usually, I work out. I'm trying to take care of myself as well. But I pretty much start working and end working. There's a lot of email in my life. I go to the theater a ton. There's only, I think, 2 theaters in the immediate region that I haven't been to yet, but I've been to all of them several times in town just to get a sense of who's doing what, see what the actors are doing, and see designers' work and directors' work. And, because part of my mission here is how can we differentiate ourselves from the other theaters, and what can we do that is not already done?
Yeah.
So then there's more email, and there's always coffee. Thank you, Starbucks. I eat way too many meals at Starbucks. And these days I'm running back and forth between the theater and our administrative offices where we've got stuff going on there. We're already planning for the gala and the rest of the shows. And we have a big event, which is kind of my favorite thing. We do this November sneak preview where we show scenes from 8 plays that we're thinking about doing for the next year. And the audience comes and they see the scenes, and then we talk about it after. We have a drink and some snacks, and then they ask questions about it. And it's kind of fun because I can take the temperature of our audience to see what excites them. And it's kind of really fun. So we're picking shows for 1920, which is our 45th anniversary season.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Crafting this season, talk about how you put this season together and what your thought process was for these 3 pieces we're going to experience.
I think there were 2 simultaneous wishes. One was that I wanted it to be a season that reflected a local focus, and that could be local to Pennsylvania. It could be local to Philadelphia, but Sweat was certainly fit the bill, and I really wanted it first. I wanted to be the first city in Pennsylvania that presented that show. And the other was women. Stories about women, and this was like not because of the Me Too moment at all, but it was concurrent to leadership changes in theater. Right now there's about 25 leadership positions turning over in the regional theater, and it's pretty exciting. But part of that is finding women artists, finding people of color, and making sure that the next generation is getting opportunities. So I wanted to make sure that we had a reflective season that represented that. And at my last theater, we used to joke that it was a teaching hospital. And even though PTC is very much more established, I wanted to take that spirit here and give people opportunities to do things that they hadn't done before or they had done on a smaller scale. And that meant everyone from interns to designers to directors. So there were a lot of firsts that are happening this season.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about finding talent. Because one of the conversations about Philadelphia Theater Company is that Philadelphia is a draw, and we're very close to New York. So there's a lot of talent in the region that really wants to work here. So sometimes there's a thought that there are a lot of artists from outside of the community being presented on our stages. And I'm wondering how you find the talent locally and just everywhere you need to go to find it.
Well, we had a very packed audition here when we had our local auditions. So I have to say I was actually a little bit surprised that so many people showed up. Partially because of the reputation we had that we don't hire locally. I didn't know if people would actually come, and they did, which was kind of great. We had to add a day, in fact. My feeling is that you can't do both, because if I'm really honest, there are many theaters here that are sort of by Philly, for Philly, and I've seen some actors in 4 plays in 1 year, which is kind of unbelievable. And they book in advance. So if you aren't on your game and you do not get to these people, I'm sorry, they are booked, which is a great problem to have. But I felt like that's not going to differentiate us if we stay solely to we're only going to hire locally. However, during my first season, I wanted to get to know as many local artists as possible, from designers to actors to directors, everybody. But I believe in a mix of communities. So I think that in my ideal world, you get out there early still, you find the best people for the parts that you can hear, and then you look and see what will complement those parts. And, like with Sweat and Bridges in Madison County, all but one role in each of those shows was cast locally. Mm-hmm. But that might not have been the case, and if we didn't find exactly what we needed, or the director really rules in that scenario, then we would have gone elsewhere. But I would always start at home. Yeah. But I think it's fun to shake up and bring new energy to companies. So I would always strive to integrate people from all over the place. Mm-hmm. You learn new things, you learn new points of view, new ways of working. I think it's just fun. Yeah. And I have a large network of people from all over the country that I would like to work with too. So, and
that's partly why I wanted to pose that question to you, because you're bringing in this wealth of experience, and you're coming to an organization whose name is Philadelphia Theatre Company, but at the same time, you're going to be bringing in, this. You have this collective of people that you've worked with or that you want to work with, and so on. So we want to see sort of these mergings, this blend. And I always hear that conversation, but I'm never really sure what its validity is. I mean, if you get what you need for your production, isn't that the goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think
whether you get it locally or wherever.
I think in the past we've also run later than others. We've announced later, and we have lost the opportunity at some of the actors that would have been great for parts. I also think that one way you can plan for that is to choose work that some of your local, like choose it for your local artists. Say, I love this artist here. This is the play I want them to do. Like, start with the actor, not the play. Say, I'm going to find a vehicle for XYZ actor. That's one way of ensuring you get that person. Say, I'm going to pick a play for you. What do you want to do? Right? That doesn't happen very often, but it's that's always fun. And that's what I also did at my last theater. Because I experienced a similar situation in Aspen. Now, granted, the community was not as large as this, so I've got a much bigger pool to choose from here. The other thing I think that Philadelphia Theatre Company could do is draw national focus by being Philadelphia Theatre Company, right? So if we bring shows here for audiences to discover that may be on a track to go on tour, or create shows, be birth shows, join with commercial producers for shows that might be on a Broadway trajectory. Like, what you're hearing probably is that I want to do it all. That's the short way of saying I want to do it all. I want local artists.
Isn't that a mission statement?
Yeah,
it is a worldly goal that's almost so big that it's almost impossible to think you'll ever achieve it, which is why you continue to strive.
Right, and then it gives you freedom. It gives you freedom to, depending on what's available that year. If they did the Kentucky cycle or they did Nicholas Nickleby and Blanca tied up, 30 of Philly's actors for an entire season, then I'd be like, okay, I guess I'm not going to get them. But, I want the most freedom to do what is right for the time. Right now the times are sort of dictating that we do this very important play during the midterm run-up, right?
Yeah.
So,
and we're talking about importance, and it makes me think of urgency, and we'll go back to this talent. Let's talk about the talent in this production. Sweat by Lynn Nottage, directed by Justin Emika. To talk about this talk about this ensemble here. And did you know any of them ahead of time? And what were your thoughts as this started to unfold? And what are your thoughts now that it's open?
I only I knew Mateo, because Mateo had been in Hand to God, which was happening when I first arrived. And then I had seen him in a couple shows. I had seen Brian in a couple shows. I saw Kimberly in a couple shows. So many of them we reached out to and said that, will you please come audition for our show? And we sent out emails to everybody and said, please, we're open for business. We're serious about hiring locally. Please come. And many of them did. Suli I had met with as a director. She came back to town recently, and I saw her at something at 1812. Walter was new. We just sort of found him. He's a gem. He's so good.
He's kind of like the community's best kept secret.
He really is. Not anymore.
Walter, you're wonderful. We're gonna chat soon.
Yeah. He's really special. But there were some people that came in that were just revelations, like Damien. Oh my gosh, he's so compelling.
Yeah.
Everyone, they're so specific. I thought it was ironic that we couldn't find a middle-aged white guy here. But some of it was just people were busy, and you have to have the right age, and chemistry with Kitson was important. And actually, I knew Rich Hebert. We did Saturday Night Fever on Broadway together back in the day. So, and we've been friends, and he used to always joke, "When are you bringing me to Aspen? When are you bringing me to Aspen?" So he said, "When are you going to hire me? I'm doing Jackie Goldfinger's play in Sacramento." And I said, "You know what, Rich? I need a middle-aged white guy. You're on." So he sent in a tape and booked it.
Great. So I know I'm jumping all around. I'm just so excited to be here. So let's talk about Sweat. Tell us what it's about.
Oh, God, it's about so many things.
How it's so fitting for Philadelphia, even though it's set in Reading.
So, it's set in Reading. And it's set really in any small town in America that has undergone a shift in its economic status, in its workforce, in its financial infrastructure. You recognize all the people in that bar, or at least one of them. And I grew up in a small town in New Jersey, and the bar in my town was called the End Zone, right? So we all have these bars that resonate for us, that where people go and drink and get vulnerable and get nasty and tell the truth and tell too much. And that's what this place is, this refuge where people come and share their fears, and the world is shifting under them, especially these people whose families have for generations supported themselves by working at one place. And that started to go away, and then some cities just literally died. The industries went and they died. And somebody said something to me when we visited Reading about sometimes the cities just die and people go, and certainly the younger generations leave. People stayed in Reading. They just stayed and gutted it out. And I think that that's a testament to the family infrastructure there and how strongly the bonds are. But the bonds were also fractured, and that's what this play dramatizes, is the what happens to friendships, what happens to families. When you lose your job, you lose your identity, you lose your livelihood. How drinking becomes an enemy, how drug use, all of the injuries that these people sustained with that hard work sometimes led to prescription drug abuse. It has all the things. It checks all the boxes.
Efforts to cope with change.
Right, and they're all real. It's, it may seem like they're all stuffed into one story, but in fact they're all real, and it's really timely. I remember when I saw it on Broadway, I thought, I might just need a little distance from this time before this play is really cooked. And cut to 2 years later only, it's not only distant, but it's come around again as something utterly now, utterly relevant to this very moment, with immigration and trade agreements. All the things that they're coping with are back in focus.
West Virginia is having a similar conversation about coal. So I'm sitting there, and halfway through the production, I'm saying, this is a millennial must-see, because this is before the economic boom, or before the economic crisis. And so all of this is going on in Reading in the early 2000s. And then we get to 2008 and see a little bit of how that has changed. But it's like being at the top of a roller coaster thinking everything is, I guess we're coming up for air now. And they have no idea. By the end of this piece where it sets, they have no idea that more is on the way. And so even though we're sitting there for 2.5 hours experiencing this, you can't help but think, and there's more for them. And it's not just Reading. It's all of these towns that had, manufacturing, that had this traditional blue-collar workers everywhere. And now all these changes that we benefit from, like we're sitting here in front of quite a bit of technology that actually keeps us moving every day, but some of these things actually stand in the way of all of us living kind of full lives because of the transitions were so abrupt, and this sort of greed, this need to make as much money as possible, kind of left so many people out of that sort of thought process. And that is what is so intense about this.
For me, one of the most heartbreaking lines in the play is uttered by the bartender who says, "I'm not voting." Mm-hmm. He just has given.
So many in the audience were like, just like, So it's like, because there's many times where you hear someone say, like I've heard many times, specifically African American young men would say, "I'm not going to vote. My vote won't count anyway." And it's like, oh my God.
But it will.
Yeah, I had a conversation with one of my coworkers saying, "Now, I'm hearing you, and I totally understand what you're saying, but just think, you're saying that here with me, and someone else is saying that across town, and someone else is saying that down the street. And next thing you know, 40,000 people have said that. They've taken themselves out. Their voice is not heard. And now the changes that are happening are changes that are not to their benefit because they didn't have a voice. But at the same time, we have to understand why they thought their voice wasn't going to be heard anyway. Right. And unfortunately, we can't get, for this example, 40,000 people together to say, if all of you decide you're not going to vote, here's what happens. And these are the changes. So,
So bring your millennial friends to the play.
Yes. I will always say, and I always say it, you should always go to the website, buy tickets, and buy more than one, because theater is more fun with a +1. Mm-hmm. And the conversations just continue. There was a thing I wanted to ask about this space. There's sort of like a secret room in here that was supposed to be a little bit more. And I wanted to know what your thoughts on that is.
I don't want it to be a secret. I definitely don't want it to be a secret. Yeah, there's a big space, which is perhaps the biggest closet on Broad Street. But we have a big space upstairs, adjacent to the lobby that we rehearse in. But it's not a public space at this time, and it was meant to be a black box or another performance space. And there are definitely plans in the works to activate that space. My personal dream for it is, as an alt kind of raw space that can be transformed into whatever, insert person, creator, event holder here, so that it is just active all the time. And I imagine maybe companies that don't have homes, theater companies, performing arts companies, individual artists, having a home here. Yeah. Because it would be great to just sort of fit out the place and have it be plug and play.
But always alive.
Yeah, always alive.
And I feel like we lose 1 or 2 spaces every year, so it'd be really great to see another one. So all you donors listening, come on over to PTC. Cut a check.
Put your name on it. We'll put it in neon.
Yeah. So I always end conversations with what presents a sense of urgency for you as an artist that that moves you forward? And what
For
are you
me,
thinking about now?
Gosh, I mean, I think about nothing else but the future. I don't have children, and I'm going to admit to you that there are days when I think, thank God I don't have children, because I don't know how I could in good conscience leave them in this world. And then there are the days when I think, thank God for those Parkland kids. Thank God for these smart, young, bright people that I meet coming out of school that I get to hire, because they're going to save us from ourselves. So for me, I think about the next generation, and I would love to have an apprentice program. I love that part of maturing as an artist, because I don't have the need to be on stage anymore. I don't have the need to be at the center of attention. I have a need to provide opportunities for the next group of voices that are going to tell us and reflect back to us what is important, what we value as a society, and how we can treat each other better.
Yeah. So now you can focus. So the production on stage right now is Sweat. It is written by Lynn Nottage. It was the winner, the 2017 winner of Pulitzer Prize for Drama. It is a wonderful piece. This ensemble is wonderful. And you can get tickets now. You go to Philadelphia Theatre, is it Theatre Co? Theatre Company,
Either
full name.
Full name or Phila Theatre Co.
Phila Theatre Co. or
.org.
Philadelphia Theatre Company.
.org.
.org. And buy a couple of tickets, because theater is more fun with a +1. Paige, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and this has been in the making for a little bit of time, but I'm so glad I gave it some space, and I'm so glad to be here at the top of this season, and best of luck here.
Thank you. We need it all.
PTC, yes.
We need all the luck.
And I'm looking forward to everything you plan to bring here and experience this as we continue in our wonderful theater community.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Want to get involved with Broad Street Review? Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com and click Get Involved at the top. While you're there, help keep us running and click Contribute to find out how. Connect with us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter at Broad Street Review. Thank you for helping to keep the conversation going.